Okay, it's live.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is the regular scheduled meeting for the Athens-Clarke County Board of Elections. The date is February 8, 2022. The time is 4:30 p.m. We are still live streaming this meeting due to COVID-19 precautions. The first item on the agenda is reading of the board member oath of office. Could I ask our secretary to please read that?
Happy to. I do swear or affirm that I will, as a member of the Board of Elections, duly attend all ensuing primaries and elections during the continuance thereof, that I will, to the best of my ability, prevent any fraud, deceit, or abuse in carrying on the same, that I will make a true and perfect return of such primaries and elections, and that I will at all times truly, impartially, and faithfully perform my duties in accordance with Georgia laws to the best of my judgment and ability.
Okay, thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. And if there are no wishes to make a change to it, the chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I so move.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Kadir, second by Ms. Fambro. The agenda is up for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand by saying aye.
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 Okay, unanimous. The agenda is adopted. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. And the first one that is requiring approval is December 14. So I will give a moment to review those, and then we can actually let's do this. Why don't we give a few moments and let's review December 14, January 11th, and 26th, and we will just do them as a slate if there are no changes. Have all members had a chance to review, and are there any changes to any of them a member would like to make? Okay, I previously said let's do these as a slate, but then I remembered myself and I believe Mr. Kadir were not in attendance for the December 14th, so I intended to abstain the approval of those minutes, so let's do that one separately. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for December 14.
I make a motion to accept those minutes.
Okay, do we have a second? Ms. Fambro.
Yes, I
Second, I looked away for 1 second. I got two monitors here and missed your hand, but we're good. Okay, so all those wishing to vote for the minutes, please raise your hand if you approve of the December 14 minutes.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? And any wishing to abstain? Okay, so the minutes pass for December 14 with 3 members voting in favor and 2 abstention. So let's do in the January 11th minutes and the special meeting, which was on January 26th minutes as one. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve those 2 sets of minutes.
Moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, the minutes pass unanimously. Moving on in the agenda. Thank you for that, everyone. So the next order of business is public comment, and I believe we received 2.
Yeah.
Would a member like to read those 2 emails? If not, I'm happy to read one or both of them.
I'll be happy to.
Okay, go ahead.
I have one from, and I'm not sure if this is one that it's not marked as public comment that I can see from skimming over it. Is it from Simone DeVries? Was that the one you're talking about, Mr. Chair?
Yes, and I believe the other one just came through a few minutes before,
Gotcha. All
which
right.
is also not labeled as public comment, but I think it's fine to just read them.
All right. The first public comment reads, "Hello, my name is Simone DeVries Silvershield. I'm a resident of Athens-Clarke County. Ahead of the 2022 elections, the Clarke County Board of Elections needs to prepare to make sure now that all voters in the county have access to equitably and fully staffed early voting sites and drop box locations. This must include offering early voting from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily, including on both Sundays, and opening an early voting location on the University of Georgia campus. By doing so, the county will ensure that all voters can participate in our elections regardless of work schedules or school and family obligations. The county should also offer the maximum allowable number of drop boxes under SB 202. Once these decisions are made, the Board of Elections should clearly communicate to voters how to cast their ballots by updating its website with information on early voting and drop box locations, as well as for those voting on election day."
Thank you. Would you like to read the other one, or you want me to do it?
Sure, happy to. I have one. It's hello, my name is Julia Drattel. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, and I'm a resident of Athens-Clarke County. Ahead of the 2022 elections, I'm sorry, this seems to be, yes, the rest of the text reads similar to what Simone DeVries had emailed us. I see the text, the body of the text is the same, and the end says, "I look forward to seeing you all at the meeting in a few minutes." Unless you'd like me to read the same text, Mr. Chair.
I think it's just fine. Thank you for that. All right. The next agenda item is the director's report. So let's turn the meeting over to Director Sosby.
Good afternoon, board. I apologize. I do not have my video going right now because I am having some difficulties. But part of my update includes the activity report, and you have a copy of that in your packets. And I wanted to highlight that we now have 72,504 registered voters who are active, and a total of 80,962 voters who are eligible. And that is our statistics for January. And our cancellations, we have 186. And of that 186, 107 moved out of state, 48 deceased, 31 are felon removals. The other thing, or the last thing I'd like to highlight, is the voter ID request and issued. So we issued 54, about 14 more than we did last month. Okay. The next thing is talking about the redistricting process. And I would tell you that according to the map that I believe has passed in both chambers, when we put in all of our districts, we found that we will have 50 different ballot styles. And I will like to mention that what has already been signed by the governor, that Athens-Clarke County is in the 10th congressional district, where previously we were 9th and 10th. And State House, currently we have House district representation 117, 118, 119. And the map that was signed by Governor Kemp, Athens-Clarke County is now represented by House districts 120, 121, 122, and 124. So we've gained an additional House representative. Do y'all have any questions about redistricting? Because I know you wanted that. And I guess what I probably ought to include is once we receive clarification that these maps have passed, we will begin to work on our data, and gladly to say that I thought we were going to have to touch every voter, but it seems that we will not have to touch every voter. So I was real pleased with that when I got information from the Secretary of State's office, our liaison. But we're ready to work as soon as the maps are approved. We're ready to start on the grind. Let's see. The next item is board members' pay, and that's on your agenda, as well as poll worker recruitment, poll worker pay adjustment. And so the next item that I will discuss is just an update on Jarvis, which is the Georgia Registered Voter Information System. We will begin training on this new application here real soon. And there's going to be some statewide training going on because this is a statewide system. But we're really excited about it. It's going to do more than what our ElectionNet system does for us. But I want to make sure everybody understands this is not changing the elections system. This is changing the voter registration system. And there's going to be some commercials and things going to be going on here soon that we looked at today in our webinar. So I'm excited about that. Let's see, advanced voting. So we had to add a couple of things. And you should have those agendas that were just sent to you via email. But we had to revise and add two things. One is advanced voting. And I sent a proposal to you via email on January 18th. So I would like to ask that, you know, if you wanted to make a discussion about it, I don't know, you might want to amend your agenda, but I would like for us to have the dates and locations by next week. So if it could be placed on your agenda for the special call meeting, which is to be determined, that will take place no sooner than February 15th, but no later than February 18th to discuss the special election. Next is another item that I added. Is an outreach update, and Pam is going to update you on that.
Hello, board members. In the past couple of months, we've been sending out letters to the local churches and organizations around here to try to inform people on voter education and to possibly do some poll worker recruitment. So far, I've heard back from one church. We've heard back from two organizations. ULEAD was one that we did. Lisa and I already has done a presentation with them, and we did it virtually. It was last Thursday. And then we also have one from Athens Anti-Discrimination Organization that we're set to do on March the 5th. And then Chestnut Grove Baptist Church, we're going to do on March the 11th. And we currently have been out to some of the basketball games in the school system. We've been to Clarke Central. Well, we're going to Clarke Central this evening, and we went to see the shows last weekend to try to, you know, inform people of voter registration and also poll worker recruitment. And we got a small response. So hopefully we hope that the more we get out, the better that it will be for us. So also I have a couple of new leads that I'm going to look into, as such as the Boys and Girls Club. They have inquired and said that they're interested in us, bringing some pamphlets by for registration and poll worker recruitment. So I'm just looking for other areas that, we can go out and try to get poll workers and also to get people registered to vote. And also, I would like to invite you guys, if you can spare the time to come out on some of the functions that we are hosting to do these projects. And basically, that's all I have right now. Any questions?
Could you
Yes,
just send a notice out to us on these events and we can see if we can make them?
Sure.
Happy to. Yeah.
Sure. I'll send an email out, a reminder of the dates.
Mr. Kadir, did you have a question?
Same question.
Okay. Let's just hold the question, sorry, violating my own rules here, and tell the director, I think she had 2 more items, and then we can go around and ask questions.
Yes, I would like to mention, thank you, Pam, by the way, great update. I wanted to mention that in your packet, you have the summary of our budget, which is current. We currently have completed or exhausted 50% of our budget, but I see that we've exhausted 63.3% in our operational expenses, which is where a lot of the elections cost comes from, like postage and printing. So we're going to try to keep our eyes on that and hope that we don't have to go and request any money for contingencies, but it's likely that we will, because we did not expect when I completed this budget, we did not expect to have had a countywide election, which was held last November. We did, however, include an election for the city of Winterville, which would only have had 1 precinct, but we had to have all 24, as well as advanced voting days and extended hours and extended days. So we're going to keep our eyes on our budget. And next is our open records request update, and Audra Taylor is going to update you with that information. Audra, if you're talking, you're muted. I can't tell.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
We had 4 open record requests for the month of January. And we haven't had any so far this month.
Okay, and you should have copies of those in your packets. Okay. All right, that's all I have for my update. Kind of short because there's items that you have on your agenda that also is reflected on mine. So I will hold until it's called through your agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director. Who looks like Mr. Shirley has his hand up. So why don't you go first?
Thank you. Director Sosby, I'm just curious, you mentioned there are now 50 ballot styles with this recently passed bill with the new lines. How many ballot styles did we have in 2020?
I figured just gonna ask that. And I was about to start counting and I said, I gotta do something else, right? So I didn't have that number, but I will have it before the end of the meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. And just a follow up then, I'm curious with that. I mean, that number to me seems huge because I want to say someone had mentioned something in the 30s before is what it used to be. I mean, y'all will work magic like you always do. What can we do to be more helpful to you? What can we do to help with this extra workload that, once again, right, the legacy of the census, we have this really short timeline we have to work with. Do y'all need any help that we can help with, or boost the signal to get more people to come work? What's the most helpful thing we can do?
At the moment, I don't really know how much time, or not time, but how much work is going to be required of us until we actually put the numbers in the system. And what I mean by numbers, it's different districts. And then what the system is going to do is it's going to flag every voter that needs to have more investigation done to. And lots of times it's where there's a split at a street. So we'd have to look at that information. And GIS has been great with us, helping us out with our house numbers on the streets that are splits. And so we're ready. And we're just, again, we're just waiting for those numbers, make sure they're right, and then we're going to proceed.
Thank you, ma'am.
you.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question, but I'll step back in case somebody else had something.
Why don't you just finish your questions and then we'll go to Mr. Kadir next, and then we
Thank
can
you.
come back if you have additional.
Thank you. Director Sosby, I'm curious, what would be the best resource we could point voters to at this point who are chomping at the bit to find out exactly what district they're going to be in? I know our GIS department is fantastic. Should they wait for Secretary of State to have something? Should they call our office? I mean, your office? What do you think?
Yes, they could call our office. And again, we're not publishing anything that we're not certain that we're just not certain of right now.
Right.
So once we receive all of our information, we'd like to have some time to get it in the system so that if and when we pull up a voter, it will show the districts. So since the Secretary of State's deadline is February 18th, and we're pushing to get there, I would say starting the week of the 21st, a voter could check and see what districts they're in. But there are going to be cards that'll be sent to every voter, and they will have the new districts on them. And if a voter does not receive a card, we're asking that they contact our office or go to My Voter page where they can access their voter information, and their districts will be on there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. It looks like Mr. Kadir was next. Go ahead.
It sounds like you may be receiving a lot of phone calls if there is confusion, and I suspect you have enough staffing to be able to handle it. Of course, we do not know at this time how many folks will actually take the card and go online to verify, and if they don't receive they don't find the information to call your office. That might be one thing I guess you might have to prepare for. I'm kind of curious, just a little overview about how are we going to this process works. Obviously, nowhere in the detail that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. When a district is changed, do you have to manually go and look at every voter and change their district, or because of what GIS offers you, you just click on the street and it changes the districts for those voters, and then it flags it, so later on you can send them a card or to notifying them of their new district.
Okay, so what we'll do is in the ENET system, currently everybody is assigned a district combo. And those combos they no longer exist because, as I mentioned, our house districts are now 120, 121, 122, and 124. So since there is a district change, there's going to be some type of change with every voter, but not necessarily that we have to go in and manually enter those changes. But what we will have to do is enter changes of those that are flagged. And not really sure how many that is, but it sounds a whole lot better than 78,000. So and we have staff here who are committed. They understand that we may have to work the weekend, and they understand we may have to work some extended hours, because this is a project that I hope we can complete by February 16th, 2 days before the Secretary of State's deadline. So we're ready. I'm anxious, but we're ready.
Thank you. I just wanted to get an idea as a general view as to how this is approached, and that helps.
Thank you, Mr. Kadir. Ms. Fambro or Ms. Till, did you have any questions or comments?
this
No, I
time.
just appreciate the work that our board and Board of Elections does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for that. I had a couple questions. Director, you had mentioned the need for the advanced voting location approval and all that. Is that okay for us to add to our special called meeting agenda? What I guess a simpler way of asking that, when do you need that information?
Well, you really need the information as soon after qualifying, and sooner the better, because again, we're going to a new system and that system will be available shortly after qualifying. But we want to make sure we have everything in the system, because there's a whole lot more to just typing in the system and saying we're going to have a new voter location or advanced voting location, and that they're going to have these particular hours, because all of that data has to be put in our EMS system, which creates the memory cards for those precincts.
Okay, so
It's
do you have a
important.
specific date? You mentioned qualifying, that's March 11th, right?
Yes,
So before March 11th, is that ideal?
yes, but sooner would be better.
The sooner the better, yeah.
Yes.
And it looks like we have to have that special called meeting before the 15th, right, of February.
Well, not before the 15th, but no later than the 18th. So it'd be the 16th or 17th.
To hold that meeting.
Yes,
Okay. But it cannot be before the 15th.
right.
Yeah, I thought the mayor and commission gave final approval last night on the T-Splosh. That's what I heard, but I could be wrong. Anyway, we can look at that later. Thank you for the update on the outreach, Pam. That was great. I already mentioned it would be helpful for us to have a calendar or schedule of where and when you like some of the members to attend, no more than 2, so we don't violate any open records laws. And you had mentioned the budget being at 60%. Will does our fiscal year end in June or December 31st? Will the May election be on this budget or the next budget?
It will be on this budget. Our budget ends on June 30th.
Okay, thank you. And then on the open records request, for at least for me personally, it would be nice to see the initial request as well, not just our response to that. So if it's possible, could we include that in the packet?
Yes, that was an overlook. I apologize for that, but we will, because we've done it in the past. So yes, we will make sure that's available.
Okay, that's fine. Did other board members know what I'm talking about? I see some confused looking faces, or is everyone good on that?
I know what you're talking about, and as you said, in the past, they provided that.
Yeah.
It's not anything new.
Okay. That's all the questions I had. So the next item on the agenda, or under old business, which is item F, is operations and personnel budgets. So that was put forward by staff. So I guess I'll turn it back over to the director to talk a little bit about that one.
Okay, so this is concerning the pay increases for manager, assistant managers, poll workers, I believe is what you're referring to, right? So
Yeah.
we compiled, as you requested, the total amount that was spent for the election as far as personnel is concerned, and comparison to what it would be if the increases were done in November 2021. And there's a difference of $864.
Okay.
So as was mentioned in the last meeting, it's best to make changes to our budget when the budget starts rather than in the middle of the budget. And so what I've included in our budget request is for managers to receive $16 an hour, assistant managers receive $15.50 an hour, and clerks receive $15 an hour.
Okay, and that would not take effect until
July 1st.
July 1st, and isn't there a potential runoff then? No, June 21st.
Yes, in June.
Okay, so do any other board members have any comments on that? Okay.
I'd like to make just a comment on it. I just feel the difference is too small to give an incentive to poll workers to want to be assistant managers and managers, but I'm not even sure how many of them at this point. We don't have an idea of how many are interested in becoming an assistant manager. But so maybe we can revisit it if depending on any interest that is expressed during the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to revisit this item next meeting, knowing what's been put in the budget and knowing that the pay study that was supposed to be completed, we still haven't seen or been made aware of, at least, which is not surprising. So I guess we will move on in the agenda. And the next item is poll worker recruitment and retention. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Got a hand.
Thank you, Willa. Mr. Chair, that's okay. The question I had kind of dealt with the overlap between this agenda item and the next agenda item, so I can wait until we get into the poll worker recruitment and retention.
I had intended to move on, but if you want to comment previously, we can do that.
I was just kind of curious about if I understood correctly, the pay increase that we had asked for would go into effect, as we just heard, next fiscal year, which would mean that it would not take effect for this May election and the June primary, or June runoff if there needed to be one. I'm just curious from a recruitment and retention perspective. To me, I'm looking for anything that will help anybody be more willing to say, sure, I'll be a poll manager versus I'll just be a poll worker. Why bother? It's why do more work for the same pay? So I'm kind of wondering, I'd be curious to know what staff thought about, would this be worthwhile for us to go looking under the couch cushions for money to move it around in this current fiscal year to make that pay change happen for the May primary, the May general election and the June runoff? Or is it just not worth the hassle to make that happen?
It was recommended by Human Resources, which is responsible. The department is responsible for the pay for all employees, and poll workers are under the category as we are, except they are temporary employees, seasonal employees, and part-time. So, like I said, it was recommended by HR. They are doing a pay study, and we will know about it because I have staff who will be affected by it. So, and I would recommend it as well because they may get more than 16. I mean, I'm just saying. I just,
right.
So
then I'm hearing just your recommendation is just kind of being in a holding pattern, just kind of let it lie and wait.
Yes, that would be what I recommend. I mean, I have to go by what I'm told by the department head. Just
right.
Like if they were asking me something about elections, I would tell them what it's supposed to be according to the law and to the rules. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And best practices.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Fambro, go ahead.
Has anyone inquired as to when they have put a deadline on themselves to finish that, or do they have any indication from doing this previously, how long it takes?
I have not. I guess I can reach out to Human Resources and maybe they'll tell me. Um, I mean, I don't know. All I
Okay.
know is our budget will be voted on by our commission, mayor and commission, and we will begin our new budget on July 1st. I do know those dates, but
Yes.
as far as the
Oh.
pay study is concerned, I know it's not easy because when they did the pay study previously, it took a long time. So this is something that I feel was not planned, of course. And, you know, again, it was voted by the mayor and commission to pay all employees who are part-time, at least to the minimum of $15. And that did affect the pay scale of our poll workers.
Okay, are there any, you're welcome. Are there any further comments? Okay, I would like to put it out there that the chair will entertain a motion to increase the pay for the May election. That $800 number is a small enough amount that I think that the action of doing so at least shows that we're trying to make an effort to help with recruitment, and the pay study could come back with more. So we're not going to be beholden to this for anything after June 31st. But again, the chair will entertain a motion.
Before you do that, Chairman, could I mention something?
Go ahead.
The $832 was only from the November election. And we will have way more employees in March, and we will have a more creative advanced voting schedule. So keep that in mind. It just won't be $832. I don't know what that number will be, but it would not be $832, I'm sure.
Okay. Thank you for that reminder. Again, I feel as though any number is worth it. I think we have a real problem here. Right. I think we should do something about it. Yes, Mr. Kadir?
Yeah, I'm going to ask the director the same question, which I believe may have asked a couple of months back on this. If we did go ahead and vote on it, does it still throw off the balance you're trying to achieve for paying your full-time and regular part-time staff versus this? That has always been my concern, and that's why I've generally not supported any of these measures until I see the pay study, which I believe I'm sure we'll see it before July 1st. So maybe the director can comment on that if it's appropriate.
Go ahead, Director.
What was that? I apologize.
Well, if we did go ahead and vote on this, on an increased pay for this particular section, and you already mentioned that it would be much more than $800. To me, the amount is less of a concern than the fact that it would throw off your pay system inside your office, because you have staff not making much more than that, if that much, and I am never comfortable with that kind of imbalance. So,
yeah, and thank you for saying that, because it's not that I'm not saying it's not worth it, but because the statement was made that it was only $832, I thought it was, I should at least, you know, mention this. And it's bigger than just giving somebody $1.50 or 50 cents more. I have employees who are not making that kind of money. And I understand what y'all are saying, but they're going to be looking at me. And as a department head, I don't have the power to increase their pay just because they're concerned that they're making less than a poll worker. And again, I'm going to go by what HR tells me. And until I get directions from the head, mayor and commission, the city manager's office, I cannot increase my employees' pay. So I hope you keep that in mind, because it's a lot required of my staff. Because again, the advanced voting schedule, These are the people who are going to have to work this advanced voting schedule. It's not just the poll workers, it's our workers as well. Now, how fair is that if they're both working 8 hours and one is getting less? And neither one of them have benefits, because I want that to be understood. Part-time employees who work here, part-time, no benefits, that's what they are, no benefits. So it's the same pay, just more responsibility.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, may I make one quick comment?
Please.
We all understand the situation of getting people to work. We can see in the news every day for the last 6 months, a year, that many companies have upped their hourly wage to $20 an hour and still cannot get people to work. So I don't really know that paying anyone 50 cents or $1 an hour, even though it's a very good gesture, and I applaud what you're trying to do, I don't know that that's really going to solve the problem, but I see that you want to make a good faith attempt. I just don't have an answer for it.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I see another comment from Ms. Fambro. Go ahead.
I think Adam was before me.
Okay. Go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say, if I am opposed to the motion, but I'll make the motion just to get it out there to have this discussion more officially. But I'm just fine having a discussion like we're having right now. If you still would like a motion made, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that is still on the floor as an option, unless there are other comments to be made.
So I'll make a motion. I mean, and whether it's seconded or not, but I understand where we're trying to go with this. Let's see. I would move that we increase the pay for the assistant managers and the managers for the rest of fiscal year 22, the way we have already approved to do for fiscal year 23. If that was the motion that you wanted to hear, Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
Are we actually ready for the motion?
Yeah, it's on the floor that the chair will entertain motion. So if that's the motion, then we'll be looking for a second.
We're through with discussion?
Well, we're really supposed to have a second and then have discussion and then have
Yeah.
a vote. We're
Yeah.
kind of out of order here. So is there a second?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and second it so we can have the discussion and
Okay.
have a vote on it.
Okay, so there's been a motion made. It's been seconded by Mr. Kadir. Now the floor is open for discussion. Those wishing to speak to the motion on the floor, please go ahead. And I believe Ms. Fambro had a comment.
Yeah, for me, and unless I'm confused, and Charlotte, correct me if I am, but at this point, we have already spent 63.3% of our operational budget. Would that include salaries, that operational budget?
It does not.
Okay.
And the rule, you cannot move, where you can move things in operational, like if you needed more money in printing, you take it from postage. But if we had more money down in operational, we can't move it up to personnel. That makes sense.
Well, I don't want anybody to move any money around, but I certainly want to keep in mind where we are. And if it wasn't the 63, maybe it was the 50% that you mentioned.
Yes, that's the overall budget.
The 50%, and we have a heavy duty election cycle coming up. And when I say heavy duty, I mean lots of voting and will be going on, and lots of things to spend money on. And perhaps for that reason, for me, it would probably be a no for me.
I think you might be muted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Somebody unmuted me, so thank you for that. I said, thank you, Ms. Fambro. Go ahead, Mr. Shirley. That's the short version.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I've been for this in other situations, so I understand that you know where I'm coming from, that you know where I've been on this before. But I am more in agreement that I would like. There is a certain narrow list of things that we have power over, and I'm very much in support of using the power that we have been entrusted with in that narrow way that we can. But I also appreciate what that does to other things that are outside of our power. And I don't want for this to cause more harm than good, no matter how much good it might cause by us trying to do this. And so that makes me not a no, never, just a no for now, at least as it currently is. Because what I'm hearing is it would be more than $832. That when I heard that number too, Mr. Chair, I was like, well, come on, we can help. Like I'll help find some way to make that happen. But I understand it's not going to be just that much money. But the bigger point about what that signals or doesn't signal to other people that work in the elections office. For those reasons, I'm with it for the intent, but I don't think is the best way to make this happen at this time. So that's why I'm opposed to it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shirley. Mr. Kadir or Ms. Till, do you wish to make a comment?
I have to agree with what Mr. Shirley just said. You know, we are generous people. We appreciate our workers, whether they're in the office or part-time temporary, but we have to understand that our hands are tied and we cannot give them out of our heart what we would like to.
Thank you, Ms. Till. Ms. Fambro, go ahead.
I would hope, and I'm sure that they will see our sincerity in this and still want to participate and come forward, so we'll have an abundance of poll workers and thinking about civic duties and what that means, you know, to get our most precious thing done, and that's for people to vote, to be able to get that done. And I hope people have that on their minds and their hearts when they think about signing up. And hopefully we'll get as many people as we need without any other incentives for now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fambro. I'd like to take this moment to speak in favor of it. I will continue to speak in favor of this. I am skeptical of how a bureaucracy works, and I'm not confident this pay study will come out in a timely fashion. So this is why I am taking a stance to raise these pay for the assistant manager and managers. And with that, we will call a vote unless there are any additional final chance for additional comments. Okay, so the motion is to increase pay for assistant manager and manager from up to $15.50 and $16 an hour. And all those in favor, raise your hand or indicate by saying aye. All those against, raise your hand or indicate by saying no.
No.
Okay. The motion does not pass. 1 in favor and 4 against. So we will move on in the agenda. And the next item is poll worker recruitment and retention. Probably a continuation of this conversation, but it looks like Mr. Shirley put that agenda item forward. So if you'd like to go first, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe this item, when I thought about this last month, I wanted just to take a moment and hear from staff, hear from other board members about what we think we can do, all kinds of things to help recruit and retain poll workers. What we are doing that is working, that we want to keep doing and double down on. What we are doing that maybe staff might think we are not, that might not be the best practice to continue. What things we could try doing. Anything. Any ideas that y'all have heard from other counties, other systems that might work? I'm open to anything, because I see now what's coming, right? If I remember talking to some staff back in the fall, just pulling their hair out figuratively, hopefully not literally, about how hard it was to fill these holes. And I just want to do whatever I can and whatever we can to help spare them that agony. It's hard enough to do the job when everybody shows up. come April and May. So that's why I wanted to bring this up.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask the director a question?
Yeah, I was going to let all the members speak and then have staff speak to it. So go ahead, Ms. Till.
Perhaps the director would know something that could be offered to these people that would not offend her office workers that we are unaware of. Something, even though it's not very much, or maybe it is much, that may entice people to take these positions.
That's a wonderful question. I have an idea, but I'll wait until my turn. Mr. Kadir or Ms. Fambro, do you wish to contribute to this item?
You're still kind of thinking on that.
Okay, Mr. Kadir, it looks like you had your hand up.
Well, I'd like to actually add to what Ms. Till said. That's interesting. What else we could do? What else we could offer? But I think sometimes I really believe the issue is also that someone who would be willing to work and put in the time is not aware. I sent out to my little listserv here in 5 Points to 1,000 people. I think I only was able to recruit one person to submit an application, but we do have 60,000 folks, and I'm not sure they are aware that we are really looking for some poll workers, and maybe maybe the Office of Communications can give us some ideas how to get that out. Maybe they are already putting that ad on our local closed circuit TV when the commission meetings are there. I'm just not sure everyone is aware that these openings for this part-time openings or spare time openings for a short period are available. So maybe a little more, we need to be a little more innovative or do something more on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kadir. Ms. Fambro?
I was thinking, as for me, Sunday, I intend to make a personal appeal to my church family. And I think a lot of times that, when you talk to people, there's fear about messing up or not, being able to do the job. So, it's a big deal for some people to do something like that. So I don't know how you overcome that. But if you know or have a section of people that you gather together with, maybe for that group, we can alleviate some of the fears that they have, hearing it on a personal basis from someone they participate with or have participated with on a long-term basis.
Great, thank you for that. My question would be, I know that the poll workers receive a dinner. Is there any kind of meal compensation or mileage or some kind of other additional perk we can provide them to make it a little more of an incentive? And so I guess I believe Lisa McGlon had some comments, but if the director would like to go, she's welcome to speak to this item as well.
Lisa's going to do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. To answer the question about additional incentives, before I forget my thought on that, we don't pay them for mileage, but one additional thing that we have started doing, and thanks to Aletha for all of the work that she does to put these together, every single precinct gets a snack bag, a large bag with enough snacks packed individually for each poll worker to get them through the day. And that's a really nice thing that we just started doing recently. And I hope that we keep it up because they really seem to enjoy that. If there's anything additional that we can do along that line, remember those things come out of our budget too. It's quite an expense to provide snacks for all these people during the day, but we do it.
It's additional staff time too, right?
Yeah, you can ask Letha how
Exactly.
much time it takes to pack bags for all these people, but she does it gladly. So we can start at the beginning. The poll worker application went live at the end of January. So far, we have had 28 applicants. We're going to start interviewing tomorrow, and I hope that we were able to contact and schedule interviews with all 28 people. I would have liked for the application amount to be higher, but that's where we're at. So if someone does want to apply, they apply through accgov.com/jobs at the part-time poll clerk ad, and they just set up an account there and they can quickly apply. One thing I also wanted to mention too is what we're finding when we go out and talk to people, and what I've found the entire time that I've been doing this job, is that most people don't know, no matter how many times we say it, that being a poll worker is not a volunteer job, that they actually become a part-time temporary employee of the county, and that they do earn money. So I make sure to stress, and so does the other staff when we go out to these meetings to talk to people, that they will be paid, and usually that increases interest a little bit too, because it is a huge chunk of time out of their day, and especially if they work early voting, it can be as much as 3 weeks to a month out of their life that they're going to devote to us. So they're happy to know that they get paid on top of the civil service that they're doing. Okay, so we've completed our planning sheets for the May election, and this is what we're going to need. We know that we're going to need 268 poll workers to commit to working, and that number includes our advanced voting sites, and we're looking to hire 12 on-call people to hopefully be on standby if someone calls in on election day or the night before and they can't work. And we're also hoping to hire 10 delivery crew people. We're still going to continue to use the same drivers that we use now, but we're hoping to replace the county workers that currently help us with people that we hire specifically for delivery. So that's how we reach the number of 268. I've recently sent out an email asking people to commit if they were going to work or not. So we have so far had 66 people commit to election day. 59 people express interest. Now, that doesn't mean that they'll work. It just means that, hey, working early voting sounds like fun. So we've had 59 people express interest in working some part of early voting. And I'm pretty encouraged by those numbers. And actually, after I sent out the email, maybe it was the way I worded it, that, hey, we need you, please commit. I've been going through emails all day and didn't finish them, trying to calculate, and respond to everybody that's either confirmed or said that they can't work. We have been working really hard on recruitment efforts. Pam talked about some of them because they're rolled into voter education efforts also. But even just this morning, we were asked to speak to the teen leaders that met to tour the government this morning. So there were about 40 teenagers that Renee Russo and I went and spoke with and demonstrated the voting equipment. Some of them were very excited about being poll workers. So I'm expecting to see their applications show up. They were excited to learn that they could start participating at 16 years old. Okay, and so some other things that are going on that could be mentioned on top of the events that Pam mentioned was that we have been working with the PI office to get a statement into the water bill insert so that poll worker recruitment will be mentioned in there along with the election dates that are coming up. I personally sent out, like Hank did, I believe, probably he said something about his neighborhood social media page. I sent out something on my neighborhood social media page. There are 600 plus houses in our neighborhood. So I'm hoping that there'll be some response from that. I'll know when I see the names for the interview, if any of my neighbors actually decided to sign up. Recently, we also had an interview for poll worker recruitment day, which was January 25th. So we were able to get an interview with the reporter for the Athens Banner Herald, and she published the article in Athens Online. It came out at the end of the month on January 27th. Oh, and then I also had the Public Information Department send out an email to, or notify all of our neighborhood leaders that work around the county about the poll worker recruitment, and to make sure to tell the people that they work with that it's an opportunity for them to earn extra pay if anyone's looking for extra work. So I'm hoping that that will be fruitful too. And when you talked about retention, one of the things that we're working on is, we call it lessons learned. So after the last election, at least in the warehouse, and I believe in the office, they did this too. We sat down and had a meeting about, how can we make things better? What can we do to improve on what we did this last election? And one of the things that came out of that was we really need to work on poll worker retention and how can we keep them engaged. So throughout the year, so that they don't forget that they're part of our family. So starting in January, I've been sending out emails to all the poll workers about once a week or so. I'm trying not to bombard them, but just little tidbits of things like, hey, these are the election dates for the year. Hey, have you thought about working early voting? I sent out a thing about the National Poll Worker Recruitment Day. So they're hearing from me quite often. They might get tired of hearing from me, but they're not going to forget that they're part of our elections family. So that's kind of where we are so far. I think that's everything that Charlotte wanted me to say. She did mention something in the chat that I am just now seeing.
Mr. Chairman, could I make one other suggestion? Perhaps not just targeting churches all the time, but maybe places that we do business. We could go to these proprietors and tell them our plight, what we've tried, what we're doing, and what we need, and see if maybe, for example, like Chick-fil-A, maybe they would be willing for election day or one of these days to provide, for no expense to the board, just sandwiches, nothing else.
Okay, thank you for that.
Oh, and so Charlotte also wanted me to mention that there are benefits for an employee. Like once they're an employee, it opens the door to other things that that we have access to. Of course, nobody really wanted COVID to happen, so nobody really wanted incentive pay for working during COVID, but it was certainly a nice thing that the county government gave that to us. So everyone who worked during that certain period in 2020, I think it was from June through a certain date in 2021. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact dates. They all received incentive pay for having worked that time. And they also had a retention bonus available to them. So I really believe that a lot of the positive responses I'm getting right now are because it's people who receive the retention bonus and know that they need, that because of that bonus, they need to commit to work this year, then the retention bonus was a really nice thing that we got.
Yeah, Mr. Shirley, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm curious, would you say that we have, sorry, Lisa, would you say that we have more of a problem with staffing up? Sorry, where's the need greater at? Managers and assistant managers, or the general poll workers, or both?
When we hire someone, we hire them in a role. So I'll talk to them, and whoever does the interview with me talks to them, tries to gauge what their interest is, where they might fit best. So, because there's paperwork that has to be done up front for those higher level positions. So once they are an assistant manager, that's how they always work, as an assistant manager. Does that make sense? Unless we need to move them up to a manager. So it's not hard to recruit that level of employee. What is hard is what I've said before, is staffing the early voting locations, because the way that we're increasing days and hours, they're basically running 7 days a week for 3 weeks. And that is very hard to staff. And the more that we increase places that we have early voting, the more difficult that's going to be. The more people we need to fill those positions. Even though like at Miriam Moore, where it will only take 6 people to run that staff, those 6 people maybe can't commit the entire week as much as 9 to 10 hours a day, including their weekend before they work election day. Because all of these poll workers also are dedicated managers and assistant managers usually that work on election day. A lot of them can't do that. It's just way too much. So like at Miriam Moore last time, instead of 6 people to staff Miriam Moore, it took 11 to staff the office for 3 weeks. I forget exactly how many it was. I want to say we had about 25 people run through there who staffed the office for that full 3-week period. So that's where our difficulty comes in. It's a wonderful way that we do early voting, and I applaud it and support it completely, but it is very difficult to staff with the level of involvement that we have now from the community.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, quick follow-up, if that's okay?
Yep, go.
I'm sorry, not quick, but with that in mind, not managers and assistant managers, putting them aside, speaking about the general clerks, the poll workers, I'd be curious, Mr. Chair, what the board thought and what staff might think about considering split shifts or less than a full day shift for the poll workers, not managers, not assistant managers, but like a morning and afternoon shift with maybe some overlap for the handoff. If that might be better, more enticing for people who are they balk at a 9 or 10 hour commitment because of childcare or because of work commitments or whatever the reason is right now why they say no. I'm curious what we all might think about that for not managers, but for the poll workers, the clerks.
Sure.
When you're ready, Rocky, if I can respond to that.
Okay, go ahead.
It would take time to do that because again, where it would normally take 8 people to staff a precinct, now you're talking about 12 people to staff a precinct. So we would have to build up our poll worker numbers who are dedicated to coming and working a split shift. Right now, we don't have enough people to offer that. We can do it on an emergency basis. Hey, I can see that you really, really want to work, but you absolutely can't get there till 12. We'll figure out a way to cover for the clerk until you can get there. That's okay. We understand. But right now, we just don't have enough poll workers on staff to do that.
Okay. I haven't said much for a while, so I'd like to jump in here on this. And I personally don't support splitting shifts. I believe that it opens up too much room for error, too much room for mistakes, or invites criticism into the process. So that's why I'm personally against it, but I'd love to hear other members, and then we're going to close this item and move on. Go ahead, Mr. Kadir.
I know I had brought up this avenue some time back. Do we have email contact with the Chamber of Commerce to ask, because it would go out to all the owners of businesses, and some of them are very patriotic about things like this, and they would ask their workers, they would be happy to ask if, just forward the email down to their workers to see if they would like to volunteer. And I think that may be one avenue we could pursue. I know that from my previous company that I worked for many, many years ago, was very, very supportive about taking any time off to be able to participate on election day or so.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else? Okay, hearing no more, we're going to move forward here with new business. Item number 1 on that is the need for the special called meeting to discuss the T-SPLOST 2023 referendum. And I'd just like to point out that I serve on the T-SPLOST committee as well, so I'm going to abstain from any comments, but I will act as chair to have a vote on this, but if anyone wants to make a general comment, we can decide on a date and then take a vote. And the way I understand it, it needs to be either the 15th, 16th, or 17th of February. Is that correct, Director?
It should be the 16th or 17th. We're hoping for the 16th because of staff that we will have on hand that day. But yes, 16th or 17th.
And is it not, so what the mayor and commission approved last night, not the final approval? I thought they gave their final stamp on it so we could have it tomorrow if we wished. Am I not understanding?
I can address that.
Mr. Jones, go ahead.
I think the city of Bogart still needs to vote before it's rock solid.
Understood. And I'm assuming then the city of Winterville has already taken care of their business on it as well?
That's my understanding, that we're just waiting on the city of Bogart.
Okay. And their meeting is on the 15th, or could it be sooner than?
I think the city of Bogart may be meeting right now.
Okay. Okay. So let's look at calendars then. I mean, if we went on the 17th date, that works for me personally. I guess it's just next week. It's not. Does anyone else have any?
I'm good both days, 16th and 17th.
I'm also good, both days, for that. And I heard, I think it was either, Lisa or Director Soulsby, said that they would have, more staff on hand on the 16th, than they would the other date. So I'd like for us to keep that in mind also.
What's that? I guess I missed that part. Do we need staff to run the meeting, or I guess we just?
Yes, we need Lisa to run the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you out on the 16th, Lisa? Is that what we're talking about here?
I'm out on the 17th.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are we talking about a regular 4:30 or so meeting?
That was my understanding. I could do the 16th. Actually, I can do the 16th. We can make it work. It shouldn't take too long. Does everyone feel good about the 16th?
I do.
I'm good.
Okay, yeah, I don't think that requires a vote. So let's just do the 16th at 4:30 for that meeting. The secretary and I will get an agenda put together and we'll get it out as soon as possible. So the next agenda item is number 2, which is approving staff recommendation for board member compensation. I believe after the last meeting, we were sent a proposal by the director. Has everyone had a chance to review it, and do we have any comments? Go ahead, Mr. Shirley.
Just making sure, have there been any changes since our last meeting, the information we were presented then?
There have not been any changes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and the way I understand it, that was a recommendation, but we can ultimately decide as we desire. Anybody else have any additional comment? Well, I guess it's a recommendation to the mayor and commission. Let me rephrase what I just said. This is our recommended recommendation. That's a weird sentence, but yeah. Anybody else? I had one comment, and that is I know that I have helped Lisa McGlon with delivery, logistics and such, and I didn't see a line in there for just straight hourly additional work. So I'm curious how that would be handled, if there's any extra circumstances where one of us is required to, and I know that Hank has helped with the LNA testing last time, I believe. So, Director, could you make a recommendation for an additional line, or any thoughts on how to handle that?
That was the reason that or one of the reasons why I made a recommendation to increase your per diem to $200 a month. And I'm sure that's more than what you generally put in for those days to do the deliveries and things. So I don't know. Y'all tell me.
Yeah, go ahead, Miss Fambro.
Maybe something that says, if those hours exceed the $200 a month, maybe some language.
Okay.
If those hours are such that they're additional past that point, maybe something like that. I mean, that's just something I'm throwing out, an idea.
I would think that would be hard to track. I was just going to suggest a $15 an hour as it is currently, if there's additional work that is being done, with the line of as needed or as required or as necessary, something like that. Mr. Kadir, go ahead.
That to me is also going to be very difficult to track, and I believe the compensation is more for the whole day's work. That may require sometimes 8 hours, sometimes 12. That's how I'm seeing it, but maybe you and the director can clarify me.
Yeah, so I was referring to that typically the Friday before the election day when the equipment goes out.
Right.
Right, which would be separate from that.
Okay, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah. Again, if we want to go back to the conversation we had earlier in this meeting, then that itself is not equitable. If we want to talk about everyone getting the same pay, because if one person works on a Friday and another person does not, then that person is essentially working for free on that Friday versus the person who works on Friday and right.
So would you suggest going back to per diem or by hour? Because it's $15 an hour. Would you prefer me just make a recommendation to up that amount and not consider the $200 a month?
That's how I personally feel. I don't know about others, but the reason I feel that way is then hours worked equals hours paid. Someone could, I don't know, just throwing a number out here, just doing a straight $18 an hour and just forgetting the rest of it.
So, Mr. Chairman, do you think that if you got $18 or the board members got $18 an hour, how many hours a year would you have to work to earn the same amount of money that we're being offered? I haven't figured that, so I don't know. Have you figured that? Do you have a number on it to give to us?
I have not calculated any of it out. Go ahead, Ms. Fambro.
If it's $200 a month, then that is $2,400 a year. And if a person puts in 8 hours, I had at $15 if they put in like for 2 days, they put in like 12 hours at $15 an hour. That would be $180.
What is it if it's 18 then?
Hold on.
I calculated the $18 an hour for a 4-hour meeting each month, and it's $864. Granted, that does not include election day. That does not include.
Right.
Um,
I don't think, I mean, because we could sit here for 10 hours in this meeting, and that's ridiculous. I think the meetings, I like the per meeting rate rather than a monthly. And then the hour, you know, because that, that's not good either to say, well, how long have we been here? You know, an hour and a half. Now that's silly too. So like,
Mr. Chairman, for the, I don't know, almost 3 years, however long I've been on the board, typically we meet 1 meeting, 2 meetings a month, sometimes 3. We work a couple of elections during the year. And speaking for myself, I think what we're being offered is very generous. But, you know, you speak for yourself.
I do too. But I also believe in getting paid for the actual hours worked, not extra, you know.
Okay, I saw Hank's hand, but
Yeah.
I defer to him, but I wanted to ask a question when he finishes.
Go ahead, Hank.
You know, I have to agree with Ms. Still here because I know it's not my problem to worry about what HR and the office has to deal with, keeping track of hours and such. But I don't want to make our work is a civic work. And I'm not comfortable with in making it entirely as a per hour job. Yes, we are putting sometimes far more hours than maybe you know, it's different every month. And I just feel if we get into that per hour basis, it changes the concept of the job. I think when we were first hired, I was surprised, or appointed, I was surprised I was getting $25 per year. I looked at like any other commission and a board job. I mean, it is something, if it to present, I definitely would be very supportive of anything else you would present. But it's just the optics of it is not very good on this. It is just more headache. I said we try it for a year, and then next year, okay, let's keep track of 1 year, and then we try it next year and see how that works, and let the director make another presentation.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Fambro.
I agree with both Hank and Ms. Teal. Ms. Teal and I were laughing because like we were doing it voluntarily. No idea $25.
Yeah, I didn't know either. Yeah.
Like any of us knew. And I feel like where we are now is generous. And I feel like that we would be kind of putting a strain on the system in kind of midstream like this, trying to change up. And I think what Hank said about my thoughts too, to let's see how this works out for a year and see where we are. And then we'll have some real figures and something real to go by to see how it worked out. And I think, you know, $2,400 is quite generous. Because I got sticker shock the first year, or maybe last year I worked, and we did a lot of hours. Maybe I don't know if it was previous year or this past year, but I got sticker shock, but it didn't even come anywhere close to the $2,400.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you, Ms. Fambro. Excuse me.
Go ahead. I'm through.
Go ahead, Ms. Till.
I agree with Ms. Fambro and Mr. Kadir, because when I started, and then I know when Ms. Fambro and I talked, we didn't think we were going to be paid anything. We were very willing to do it because of what we felt we owed to citizens and voters and being a good public servant. So I'm very humbled and grateful to take what we're being offered, honestly.
Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I have dogs and children in the background. That's why I keep muting.
Oh.
Mr. Shirley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The main thought that I have on my mind during this topic is, I believe one of the other board members had shared this a month or two ago, this intense discomfort with this whole issue, right? Like of talking about our own pay. And that's kind of what's the first thing that like clouds most of my thinking on this. And so that I think is what's keeping me from fully understanding the point you're trying to make. And I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I am definitely sympathetic as someone who is soon to become a parent. I'm sympathetic to, for example, somebody who might otherwise want to do this, but once we go back to in-person meetings, maybe they can't arrange childcare at the per diem that maybe we might have been getting or something like that. So I definitely, with that in mind, I want to try and keep this as accessible to as many citizens as possible so that everyone can have a chance at occupying the seats that we're in one day. But I feel at the same time like this is heading in that direction. So unless I'm grossly misunderstanding something that a point you're trying to make, I think this is a step in the right direction, and so that's why I'm happy with it the way it is. But I definitely want to know more if you think that I'm just completely missing your point about the pay.
No, I don't think so. And I think the point I was trying to make would probably result in less money. But the point I was making is that it is 1 for 1. Hours worked, hours paid. There's no taking your $200 and leaving early and leaving the other 4 board members there to do all the work, or someone working on that Friday and the other 4 not working, or other 3 members not working, and now that person is, that's the point I'm making. But at that point, the net result would probably be less, but in my mind, I think that's the fair thing to do. But I think we've discussed this enough. And the chair will entertain a motion to accept the proposal. Or sorry, the chair will entertain a motion, period.
I'll make the motion that we accept the proposal by the director.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? I think I saw Mr. Kadir first. Any further discussion before we take a vote? Mr. Shirley, go ahead.
Just a small housekeeping thing. I wanted to be sure. Anne, would you be okay with the motion? I wanted to clarify the language. Motion by Ms. Till to accept the proposal by the director regarding board member compensation. Does that last part, is that okay with you to clarify?
You're always so good at what you do. Thank you for helping me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Could I make a point of order to myself, I guess? I don't know if that's what you do, but I think we should maybe read what it says so the public that's watching and listening knows what the director's proposal was. Does anyone have it up? I can pull it. Okay, Mr. Shirley, could you just read it as it is so everyone knows what we're talking about?
Happy to. And please, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, Director Sosby, if I get something wrong, if I'm looking at an old version or something, please correct me. But the proposal I'm reading has a per diem / month of $200 per month. Election day, $200 for 2 elections per fiscal year. Election certification at a rate of $100 per diem for 2 elections per fiscal year. Conferences, conferences $150 per day, usually 3 days. And that total item for that line item for the budget purposes for all the board members would come out to $17,250 if I'm reading the correct document.
17,000.
That's what I'm reading on the document for the total
I
for
think
all.
there's a type, there's a missing comma.
Yes, yeah, in total.
That's all 5. Yeah.
Yeah, in total.
I guess, so we have a second on the floor, so we're in discussion. I guess one thing that sticks out in my mind is that we had more than 2 elections last year, and I anticipate us probably having more than 2 in this year. So does the $200 per election, are we limited to 2, or is it 200 if we have 2 elections, or 200 if we have 6 elections? So
I only put in consideration what the budget will have for FY23, and there will be 2 elections for sure. There's one that may not occur, and that's the federal general
Right.
election. Yeah.
So I guess the question is, what happens if there are 3 elections, or 4, or 5, or more than 2?
So then, if the next fiscal year there's 3 elections, then I would budget for 3 elections, the same as I
Okay,
do for 2 elections.
so I guess that doesn't answer my question then. So say there were, in this upcoming fiscal year, there were 3, you had budgeted 2, will the board members be compensated per that additional election, the third one that happened?
Okay, I apologize, but
Yeah, thank you.
for clarity,
Yeah.
there's only elections that are scheduled for this year are those.
Right.
And if there's going to be a special election, it will have to be held with the general primary or the general election. So there's no other elections that can be held this year other than the general primary runoff, the general elections, general election runoff, and for state and federal.
Okay. So that would be 4 then, but there's 2 for sure, right? With a potential of 4.
No, there's 2 for sure for FY23. The other ones that I named, with the exception to the federal general election, will all occur in our current budget, FY22. So every election that occurs after July 1st will be in this budget. And I factored 2, not 3.
Okay, I understand. I think. Anybody else wish to make a comment? Go ahead, Mr. Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I was right there with you for your question. Thank you for asking it. Thank you, Director Sosby. Yep, I was missing the fiscal year break. So in calendar year 2022, if I'm hearing it right, we will be certifying a maximum potential of 4 elections, right? The general primary runoff, the general election, and the general election runoff, potentially in calendar 22. But that straddles 2 fiscal years, and so if all the stuff I just said is correct, then I'm good on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shirley. Director, did you have anything to respond in response to Mr. Shirley?
Other than yes, that's exactly what I was saying.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Fambro, go ahead.
Mr. Shirley, could you read the motion one more time?
Yes, ma'am. The motion I have currently is motion by Ms. Till to accept the proposal by the director regarding board member compensation. Seconded by Mr. Kadir.
Okay, and I may be being dense, but I guess I still don't understand my question. Yeah, Mr. Shirley, can you help me be less dense, I guess?
So
I think you were following my question at least.
right. So what we have for the rest of the current fiscal year, that'll run through June 30th, right? And so that will cover our May general primary and a potential June runoff, which is not included in this proposal. That is not what's covered by this proposal. What will kick in is fiscal 23, which begins 7/1/22, and that will cover the November general election, a potential federal runoff, and as far as we know, before June 30th of 2023, there is no election scheduled. If all the stuff I've just said is correct, then that's what I understand, and that's why I'm okay with this.
Okay, I guess, yeah, so now I follow that. I guess what I'm saying is, okay, so we're in 23 and say a special happened. There's no way to predict whether it will or will not. We were budgeted for 2, but we ended up working a third, much like happened in 2020. How many elections were there? Will those be compensated? That third one that was not budgeted for, but did happen. That's
So,
where I'm confused.
so state law would not allow you to have any elections during an even number year other than those that are called by the Secretary of State's office. In odd number years, we can have special elections, like in March, and there's some other dates
Right,
according to the state code. So what I included was the general election and the general election runoff for state candidates, because I foresee that it's very likely that we will have a runoff for the general election. However, I don't see or foresee that there will be a general runoff for the federal candidates. And that's the one that I did not include.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
Mr. Raffo,
Go ahead.
I think you are looking at a hypothetical that is not possible as of right now. So.
Oh, okay. So I guess was 20 even number year 2020, was that because of the state election board's emergency, or the Secretary of State's emergency declaration when we had 5 or 6 or however many it
Well,
was that year?
First of all, one reason we had more elections is because we had the presidential preference primary. Of course, it was combined with our general primary election. And then we had our general primary runoff. We had our general runoff election. We had our general election for state. We had a general election for federal. And if you recall, the federal election included the offices of U.S. Senator, which would not be in a special election this year.
Okay.
And you will be compensated if there's 3, by the way, or 4 or 5.
That was the most, okay. That's all I need to, but now I understand, and now I remember hearing at the conference actually, or maybe from the attorney's office at some point, that the code spells out it can only be on a certain day of a certain month in a certain year. So now I understand. The floor is, or we're going to close discussion, and the chair will now call a vote. All those in favor of approving, could you read the motion again, Mr. Shirley? Sorry.
Happy to. Motion by Ms. Till to accept the proposal by the director regarding board member compensation.
All right. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Till, was that you voting aye?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes, unanimous approval. There we go. Moving on. Thank you. I apologize for being so dense, but and now I understand. Mr. Kadir, go ahead.
Just a quick comment that I appreciate the effort that our director has made, and I just hope, and I'm not hope, I'm sure we will be worthy of the of whatever compensation that we are given for the rest of the year. Thank you.
And then Mr. Shirley, and then Ms. Fambro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to ask, I remember it was mentioned at some point earlier in the meeting, a suggestion that if we wanted to talk about advanced voting locations tonight, whether we would need to amend the agenda if you wanted to do it now, or we could simply hold off until the special called meeting we've already called.
We can take a vote, but I would like to just do it on the special called meeting so we can absorb the information. Admittedly, I wasn't prepared for that discussion. Ms. Fambro, go ahead.
I noticed we were like unanimous, the 4 of us. And for point of order, I think it should be mentioned somewhere in the secretary's notes that our chair is on that committee. And, that is why we did not, that he did not participate in the voting.
Well, I made that comment, but I don't think that the business item number 1 required a vote, and we did not take a vote.
Okay.
So we're just picking a date. However, when we meet in that meeting, that's
No,
when I will
no.
abstain from that vote.
Excuse me, I am back all the way back to the last vote that we took.
Okay, so the last vote was on the compensation, which was separate from the T-Splost item. I guess I'm confused.
Yeah, okay, we're together now.
You sure? Okay. So your question was regarding the T-Splost
Mhm.
thing, which we picked the date of the 16th at 4:30, and we didn't need to take a vote on that. It was just a
Right.
discussion. And then we just took a vote on the board member compensation, which all 5 of us voted in favor.
So at this point, we're discussing whether to have conversation about
Adding
talking about.
early voting locations. Yeah. So it was my intent to work with the secretary to put that on the agenda, but unless others wanted to have that conversation now, we can do that. Okay. So let's go ahead and move into announcements then. So our March regular meeting will be held on March 8th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. We will hold a special called meeting, as we just mentioned, on February 7th or 16th, February 16 at 4:30. It will be virtual. And just a reminder that voter registration deadlines for the May 24th election and the June 21st runoff is on April 25th. And May 23rd is the deadline to register in order to vote in federal contests if there is a June 21st runoff. And that is all I have, unless others have any other additional announcements or wish to make a final comment. Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I thought you all wanted to sit here all night. Do we have a second? A second by Mr. Shirley. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. The meeting is adjourned at 6:14 p.m. Have a good evening and